CDC has a bunch of statistics, so does the World Health Organization. And the CDC said in 2021, that's the last official stats for all the ones that I'm going to talk about. In 2021, 48,000 people took their life. That's one death in every 11 seconds.
The month of May holds a special place in my heart. Not only is it the month I was born in, but it's also Mental Health Awareness Month, especially here in North America, and I know it's getting bigger across the world. So, for this special month, we are honored to partner with Mission Save a Life, a new force in the fight against mental health stigma and suicide. Through education and advocacy, they're sparking conversations that lead to positive change. So, are you ready to join the conversation? Take the first step by visiting missionsavealife.org. Join our community, share your voice, and let's amplify the message of mental health awareness and suicide prevention. Together, we can be the change. And know that you are not alone and you have a community of people that are here and ready to support you. No judgment, just love. Now, welcome to Unleash Thyself, a podcast where we journey into the depths of personal transformation, spirituality, and growth. I am your host, Konstantin Morun, and today we're talking with Jen Weis, the visionary behind Mission Save a Life. Now, Jen and I connected through our work at Microsoft, and you could say through random events that you'll find out more about in the episode, but they weren't random at all. Now, Jen is a senior leader within Microsoft, and she has some interesting and tumultuous things happening in her life that put her on a path of helping many beautiful souls, and now starting Mission Save a Life with a beautiful, beautiful mission for the world. I won't spoil more because I would love for you to watch the episode and see how this unfolds, but know that this is a very, very important topic to discuss because we know that a high percentage of people struggle and usually struggle alone, and that means that we have a responsibility as individuals to help wherever possible, and of course it starts with helping ourselves. And so now, before we start, I do have a small favor to ask. Please subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement helps us continue to bring these transformative stories to light. Now, let's get started. Hello, beautiful souls. Jen with me here. You've seen from her intro, she's into some amazing stuff. So, Jen, why Mission Save a Life?
Well, Constantine, thank you for letting me come on today and to tell my story. Why Mission Save a Life? Well, first, this is a very emotional topic, and I do get choked up every time I talk about it because of what I'm going to talk about. But 4 months ago, I had just come back from a month-long road trip to work on myself and work on some of the things that are important to me. I like coaching and developing others. And the day I got home, I got a phone call. Well, first I got a text. I got a text from my son's girlfriend, followed by a phone call for her to tell me that she received a text from my son and his best friend and roommate had just taken his life. And he was sitting there just not responding to her. And, for a mom an hour away, just getting back, I was like super worried and scared about like what happened and what the status was. And, went up and visited all of those pieces of it. But why Mission Save a Life? I watched my son. I watched his friends. I watched the family of the young man who took his life just struggle with pain, with guilt, with grief over the loss. I watched our community like all come together and support him. I watched all of these pieces and was just torn up as a parent, and I didn't know what to do. But that was just one element. After that, 5 other young men over the course of the last 4 months followed the same path. And I know what I went through. I know what my son went through. I know what his friends went through. I know, and I can only imagine the other parents. I was completely helpless. I didn't know what to do. I was unprepared, and I just started talking to everybody about it. I started researching. I started talking to everyone, only to find all sorts of other people that had the same story, other people that were worried about their kids, other people that you know were in similar situations to me. And after I realized that there was a gap out there of knowledge and awareness around suicide. And that was what started me thinking about maybe there was something I can do. And so I, along with a couple others in our community, started a nonprofit called Mission Save a Life. And the goal was to create awareness, education, and then empower people to take action. So that's where it came from.
Wow, what a powerful story, Jen. Thank you for sharing that. Now, let me ask you this. Before all this went down, how important did you find mental health and, of course, suicide awareness in your life? Was this something that was always top of mind, or was it until it hit close to home for you to be like, you know what, there actually isn't enough going around? We need to bring more awareness, like you said, more information, more empowerment.
Yeah, personally, I went through a period of time where I've struggled with my own mental health, right? I struggled with overwhelming stress. I struggled with little bouts of depression myself. I struggled with you know health issues related to being overwhelmed, being stressed, and having anxiety around that. So I struggled with it. Um, you know, I have family and friends that have ADHD, right? And have struggled with mental health and struggled with growing up in this fast-paced environment and have had others express concern around these individuals. So mental health has always been something that I was cognizant of, and I spent quite a bit of time working on myself, working with my family,
Yeah.
working with friends. And so I was very aware of mental health. I just wasn't aware of seeing it and finding it and recognizing it in people before it was too late, right?
Yes.
All the other episodes, all the other things, someone may have said something or asked questions or asked for help. I mean, I look at my son and his friends, and they were completely unprepared for losing their friend. I mean, it was a group of really six close boys, and they were just completely unprepared for it.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I'm assuming they were blindsided as well. This is something that not only were they not prepared to deal with, but they probably didn't even know that their friend was struggling with this.
I mean, they knew he was having a hard time, but not to the point where they thought that this would take place and happen. And I know there's others in our community with these five other young boys, and from a suicide statistics standpoint, suicide is the second leading cause of death. I didn't know this. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for 14 to 29-year-olds. Second leading cause of death for 14 to 29-year-olds. And one out of every nine high school students has attempted. I, I mean, I wasn't aware of these statistics. And that, caught me off guard and caught me off that I didn't even know I should be looking for that in others.
Absolutely. And I know you and I talked about other statistics as well that blew my mind to hear them. Can you share some of those with the audience as well? Because, like you said, these are things that until you become aware of them, you don't even think of how common they are and how much of our family and friends and acquaintances and coworkers actually being impacted by mental health and, of course, suicide as well.
Yeah, the CDC has a bunch of statistics, so does the World Health Organization. And the CDC said in 2021, that's the last official stats for all the ones that I'm going to talk about. In 2021, 48,000 people took their life. That's one death in every 11 seconds, which, if 48,000 people took their life, 1.7 million people were reported to have attempted suicide. Now, these are just the ones that are known, right, of attempted suicides. 3.5 million adults made a plan, and 12.3 million seriously thought about suicide. So those are the statistics, and those are only the ones where people report it, people talk about it, people take the survey, those components of it. But in four times men, middle-aged white men, the suicide rates is four times that of the female counterparts. I, just looking at those statistics, I was shocked by the number. And when you think about every death or everyone that had an attempt, how many people are around them? I mean, just the funerals of these young men in our neighborhood, hundreds and hundreds of people are there. So for every death, how many people are actually impacted? I don't remember the exact number, but I think the statistic was somewhere around, 68% of people at some point in their life will be directly connected to a suicide.
Yeah, that's more than 2 in 3 people, right? That's
Yeah.
actually a staggering number to think about it. And the numbers you just talked about in the millions. I mean, I can only look back at my journey, and I was suicidal back in 2022 for the very first time in my life, and that wasn't anything. Sorry, that wasn't something that anyone knew about, right? So I wouldn't even be part of the statistic because I didn't self-report. Nobody asked me, so I can only imagine how much higher the numbers actually are, and how alone people feel in those situations. Because I know how alone I felt, even though I was surrounded by people that loved me and wanted the best of me. I just felt alone and I felt different, so I didn't want to reach out to anyone or bother anyone. So I can only imagine the real numbers and the real impact happening in the world.
Well, and the key thing that you just said is most of the people in this position feel like others are better off without them, right? And they're afraid to reach out, and they don't want to look weak, and they don't want to bother them, and they think people are better off without them. I mean, I guess, not I mean, it was a while ago when I felt that way myself, and I felt really alone. Um, but just to think that anyone thinks that everybody else would be better off without them.
Yeah,
Hey, it's
absolutely.
Constantine here, and I want to take a brief moment to truly thank you for being a part of this incredible journey of transformation. You are the reason we are creating this content. I see you and I appreciate you. Your support truly means the world to me. I want to ask you for a small favor. I'd love for you to join our mission by hitting like, subscribe, or leaving a thoughtful comment or review. Your engagement helps others discover these insights, and together we can continue to unlock the power of authenticity and personal transformation. Thank you for being a part of this movement. Now, back to the episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's unfortunately the reality for many people. And if anyone listening to this has ever felt the way or feels this way or knows someone that feels this way, know that you're not alone. And then, of course, there are people you can reach out to. We'll put the numbers for the hotlines below as well to, if you need help, you can always reach out and get that. But let's get back to the mission Save a Life really quick here, Jen.
Yeah.
So you talked about why, right? Tell us a bit about some of your goals and some of the things you've been able to achieve so far and what you hope to achieve in the future as well.
Well, I'll get into those pieces a little bit, but I want to expand upon one of the things that you just said, and uh, I am a Christian. I believe in God, and I was at church this last weekend, and the message there led directly to kind of the foundation of why we established Mission Save a Life. And it's really founded on like four things. The first one is what every each and every person is a piece to the puzzle, right?
Yes.
Everybody has a unique skill. Everybody was given a unique skill. They were given a unique purpose. They were given a unique voice. You're not meant to be like everybody else. I'm not meant to be like everybody else. We all have something unique to bring, and we are all irreplaceable, right? And we're meant to, bring our gifts and our voice to the community. And some people don't know what their purpose is yet, and that's okay. Just trust that you have one, and trust that someone wants to hear your story one day. I bet when you were going through your dark periods, right, you had no idea that 3 years later, 4 years later, that your story would have the ability to potentially impact somebody else's life. So I didn't know that. I didn't think about it back when I was, going through those pieces, that my story was going to be able to impact someone else. So that was the first one. So we want everybody to know that they matter, and that they're a piece to the puzzle. The second one is, no one's meant to live in isolation. No one's
Yes.
meant to know it all themselves, right? They're meant to be a part of a bigger body. They're meant to be a part of a community. And so when you're in your darkest place, you tend to isolate yourself, and you tend to, you're almost taking a piece of yourself away by not being connected to others. So you're meant to be part of a community. My strengths are meant to complement your weaknesses, and your weaknesses are meant to complement my strengths. I, I think we were all brought up that we need to have all the answers, that we need to be strong. No,
Yes.
I don't know everything. Sometimes I think I do. I'm sure that's, I don't know everything, and we're meant to do it together. Um, and the third one, and this is where like Mission Save a Life comes in, is we want everybody to know that their voice matters. Like, we want to provide a platform that you can tell your story. I can tell my story. Anybody can go tell their story, because there's someone out there that needs to hear it. And I struggle every day thinking, well, is this going to make a difference? Is this worth it? And then I'll run into someone like you and I meeting, right?
Yeah.
And it gives you a platform to tell your story, and it gives somebody else. So that's just, we want everybody to know that their voice matters, and give them a platform. And then the fourth one is to build a community, right? Give everybody a place to go to share their voice, to listen, to learn, and to know that others care about mental health as well, and can share that with them. So that's really the four things of kind of the foundation of what Mission Save a Life is about.
Oh, I love this so much, Jen. And thank you for sharing that. I want to go to point number three for a second, right? About sharing your story and the
Yeah.
power it has. I mean, the only reason you and I even know each other is because I opted to share my story with my team
Yep.
at Microsoft, right? And
Now I
as
get the lights
someone,
coming in here.
you
I'm in the
changed the
dark
entire
now.
dynamic. But yeah, so it's like all about telling your story. I became vulnerable. I became authentic in the moment, sharing my struggles, my journeys, and someone knew you, and they connected me with you, and the rest is kind of history, right? I've been able to find a platform like the one you've built right now, where I can share my story, but also, like you said, empower others to realize they're not alone. They can share the story, and it's going to impact so many other beautiful souls, and they can essentially find their purpose, like you mentioned. That's the number one thing. Find their why, find their unique gifts and strengths, and bring more of them to the world. And funny enough, a lot of the stuff you talk about, I talk about in my own coaching and mentorship, right? And we have similar views, which is what is important for those listening to realize as well. It's like, if I hadn't opened up, or you hadn't opened up, we wouldn't know each other, even though we have so many similarities, yet my weaknesses, like you said, complement your strengths, and vice versa. And that's so powerful, it cannot be overstated.
Well, and that's kind of like, if there's two takeaways. One takeaway is you are a piece of the puzzle. Everyone is a piece of the puzzle, right? And the other one is, just don't be afraid to talk about it, right? Because as you said, had I not told one of my friends about it and what I was doing, and you had not talked about it on a team meeting and she heard it, we wouldn't have been connected. And like, I always, sometimes I struggle when people are like, hey, how are you doing? Well, now I actually sometimes like that question because then it gives me an opportunity to say, well, do you really want to know what's going on? And when they say yes, I'm like, well, it might take 5, 10 minutes, but I'm happy to tell you about it. But when you start talking about it, it just starts opening up the conversation with other people. I'm shocked at the people who say, you know what, I was there. I
Yes.
was in that position. And if somebody hadn't, if I hadn't said it something to someone, I wouldn't be here today. I can't tell you how many times I've heard similar stories to that. I mean, we'll have a gentleman on the podcast coming up, and it was a chance encounter on the plane, and I knew I needed to have a conversation with him. Had a conversation with him, and it's like, wow, there's quite a reason why. But yeah, I would just encourage everybody out there just to start talking about it, right? Have a conversation, tell someone, what you're doing and share. Because when you do, that's when people start to have real authentic conversations and open up and know that they're not alone and know that they're part of a community.
And that's the big thing there, Jen. The idea that once you start sharing and also opening up to listening to others as well, genuinely listening to them, you realize that you are not alone. Just because you struggle with some things, others will struggle, and again, you can complement each other. And that's what I found very empowering for myself when I went through my dark time. And it, took me 8, 9 months to actually start opening up. And the more I did, the more support I got. Yeah, sure, there were some people that perhaps didn't know how to handle it. Perhaps they had their own fights to undertake and they couldn't be supportive, but that's usually the minority. Now, what I've also found, and I'm curious to see your take, if you're someone struggling and you don't really have anyone in your close proximity that you can open up with without the fear of judgment or the fear of rejection of or any other fear that may come up, I have found that online communities help a lot. Like a lot of the people I was able to open up to are not local to me,
Yeah.
and they are online. And I have found so much value in that, which is why you build a platform. You talked about number 4, which is community, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because I was actually doing some research on this particular topic. What happens if you don't have a group of friends? What happens if you don't have supporting family members? And you talked about a couple of things. One, you can find an online community that has certain similar interests that you could go engage in. Um, you could also, there's plenty of hotlines, right? And we'll share the hotlines that you can call in the group to be able to talk. You can text, right? Some people don't like to talk face to face. Some people would rather text. Some people would rather be on the phone. But you can do that. The other interesting thing is go volunteer,
Mm,
right? Because sometimes if someone's in the deep dark place, it's because they feel like they don't have a purpose. They feel like one of the studies talks about going to volunteer, right? Go do something that you feel good about in contributing. And you know what? Maybe that volunteer and being out there gives you a chance to talk to other people and feel good about what you're doing. Another one is go take a class. What's something you're interested in? You could go take a class on a topic. You can take a work group or something online and meet other people that might have an interest, that you have. But you could go take a class online. And that's also then why we did the community, because we within our community, anybody can engage in almost any way. So we have some people like yourself that are hosting podcasts. We have people that want to share their story and go on a podcast. We have some people that want to be on a podcast and some people that just want to like host and share stories. We have others that want to teach a class. We have others that want to do a workshop. We have others that want to there's a college athlete that's participating now and building a community for college athletes in a program, and he started a market study on it. We have a teacher, a former teacher, who now wants to put something together for teachers to be able to talk about it. And I just see my little picture on the little window. We have there are many different ways to engage. Maybe you have a favorite book. that you want to share that got you through it. Maybe you have a favorite song. You can post a song out there, right? There's many different ways you can get engaged.
Oh, I love this so much. And he gives some really good examples of things I've done myself to pull myself out of the situation I was in. And at the end of the day, it does, something that comes up for me a lot is that, as harsh as it sounds, nobody's going to come save you unless you're willing to save yourself from the situation you're in, right? Mental health related or otherwise. And that's what I have found too, because no matter how much everyone in my life wanted to do something with me, for me, to help me get out of the situation,
Yeah.
until I was willing to do something, there was no saving me, so to speak.
Well, that's really one of the things that I think you and I have both talked about, which is there is nobody's going to come along and just like save you and fix it for you. It has to start internally. You might have the support and the encouragement of somebody, but that's one of the topics that I well, hope to share on a future one is I, as a result of this, also wrote a book called Caught in the Act, right? And Caught in the Act is all about catching yourself in a limiting belief, catching yourself in a behavior, like isolating yourself. Is that who you want to be? Right? Maybe you're scared of something, or like, how do you catch yourself in the act of something that isn't you that you want to change? And then changing your thought or changing the emotions you associate it with it, changing something to change your outcome. But ultimately, it has to come from you. Hopefully, you have a supporting character, cast that can help you, but ultimately, it comes from you.
It does, yeah, absolutely. And now, like you said, with resources like the ones Mission Save a Life provides, the awareness, the materials, you don't even have to reach out to anyone else. You just can go and consume this and make the choice yourself to bring yourself out of the
Yeah.
situation. And then you can start doing the other things, which may be a bit more scary, which is reach out to people, right? Join a community, start volunteering, do all the things that Jen, you mentioned just a few moments ago.
Yeah. And, one of the things I always struggled with being in the position I am is having to know all the answers. I'll tell you what, this whole exercise has really taught me that I don't have to know all the answers, and I
Mm,
actually don't have all the answers. And it's been a lesson for me in being okay with that. Um,
yes,
and I spent a lot of time on my own uh, prayer, meditation, affirmations, manifestations, whatever you want to call it, visualizations. I'm like, I close my eyes and I picture that those 48,000 people that took their life. And I picture, that up to what 12.7 that have thought about it. And I picture everybody around them. And I'm just like, bring the people, talking to God, talking to the universe, talking to divine intervention, bring the people in my life, bring the things in my life that I need to make this happen. And that's how you come into the picture. And that's how, all these other individuals, it's amazing. I'll walk around and
yeah.
I overhear someone say something. I'll be, excuse me, did you just say blah, blah, blah? I'm like, yeah. And you start on a conversation and it turns out they host a podcast show, right? And then you're talking to this and all of a sudden this person, I mean, it's been amazing the things that have come into my life when I started this. Um, because I'm open to it and I know I don't have the answers. And so if you're struggling with mental health, it's okay not to have the answers. It's okay to acknowledge that you're not in a good place and then to picture yourself of the place you want to be and ask for help. Whether you're asking the universe, you're asking God, you're asking a helpline, right? It's okay. Everybody has been there or is there. I think that's one of the problems is most people pretend that they're okay. Most people pretend that everything's good and they don't realize that a lot of people hide, behind a wall and it's okay to start asking and it's okay not to be okay.
It's okay to not be okay. I love that, Jen. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I know we'll in the next episode we'll go deeper into my story around mental health. But when you said, many people are hiding or stay behind the wall, that was me most of my life. Of course, hindsight is always 2020. So looking back now with the information I have, I realize that I've struggled with mental health issues on and off throughout my life. And I never did anything about it because there were always other priorities
Yeah.
that I deemed as priorities. And then, of course, when things got really bad, that opened up a lot of different avenues for me to explore, right? And that's when I started to realize, once I put myself out, it's like, wait a second, you know what? It wasn't just the 6 months or the 9 months I went through this, it was actually years in the making that led to this part of it, which is something I see more and more. The more people I get to work with, the more people I get to speak with, the more common this becomes.
I think the coping mechanisms that most people have are just to keep filling their life with more stuff, right? It's like, oh, I feel anxious about something. Well, I better go do something else. And you just keep filling it and filling it and filling it. And eventually you get to a point where it just blows up, right? It just becomes too overwhelming and too burdening. It's how do you, again, catching yourself in the act. How do you catch yourself in the act when you can feel your cup, you know, filling in the
Getting
wrong
fuller.
direction, right? So that you can take time to breathe. I find myself taking time to breathe a lot. You can take time to says, you know what? I need to take a half a day. I did that last week. I blocked off my calendar for 2 days and I'm like, yeah, I took a couple meetings and did a couple things for work, but I'm like, I need a break, right? Mental health is a challenge where half the time it's not a physical thing you see, it's mental. So, you know, yeah, it's important to take time when you need time. It's important to not fill your day with lots of things to do. You know, spend 15 minutes just sitting and reflecting. You know, take a walk over lunch. I mean, just putting little mindful activities in your day is super important. Um,
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, I guess, society these days, right? Everything is meant to be either a distraction or get you in the mode where you're consuming something, which means that what you just said is not readily available anymore, which is that moment of silence or those moments of silence and moments of reflection, those moments where you can just be with yourself. And if we were to compare to, let's say, 50 years ago when there weren't as many distractions, you can see one reason as to why there's a mental health pandemic going on or whatever they want to call it, where it's like more and more people are suffering because a, at least from how I see it, they don't teach you how to really take time for yourself, go inwards, why self-care is so important, and b, all the opportunities you had before for self-care, because there was no internet, there were no devices to distract you, all those are gone. And now if you want to be distracted 24/7, you can be distracted 24/7, which means that every emotion, every feeling you have can get buried down until it cannot anymore. And that's what I was most of my life, right? Because I wasn't, as a man in Eastern Europe growing up during the communist era, you were told not to feel your feelings, right? Like boys don't cry, all the stuff that people get told. And now all of a sudden you end up with the situations that we have, where people don't know how to cope with things, they don't have the information and the tools, and then they just, unfortunately, some take the only option they see available to them in that moment.
well, you hit on two things there. The first one is that constant distractions. Our kids these days don't know what it is like to sit still and not do anything. They don't know what it's like to go outside and throw a football around or, play in the dirt, right? They're constantly on a device, engaged in things. And not only that, but they're constantly told, like, do more, do more, do more. Like,
Yeah,
it's the ability to think and the ability to reason and the ability to, well, they don't have to, right? But then a lot of them don't know how to cope with the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, and those things that come with it. So that's that's one of the pieces. And then the second piece that you hit on, I don't think it, and I have no idea what your environment was and stuff growing up, but one of the reasons why the white male rate of suicide is so much higher is they spent their whole life. Your job is to go work, provide for the family, those pieces of it. And if something happens to their job, or if something happens to their relationship, they've only defined themselves as, I have this job, I'm this person. And when that disappears, if it disappears, they don't have another identity. um,
Yes.
and they don't know how to cope. And that's that's what we talk about with the college athletes too, is sometimes our athletic programs these days, like, you're in grade school and you already have to be on this select team and you have to do the sport for hours and hours. It wasn't like that growing up. Anybody could go out for the sport and do it. Now you have these kids that are defined by one thing, participation in a particular sport. The kids aren't going to make it to, some aren't going to get scholarships to college. And if you got a scholarship to college, are you going to get that professional, you know? And what happens when that athletics is gone? I mean, the friend that took his life had a scholarship to go play football. Guess what? They lost their senior year because of COVID, lost the freshman year because of there was no school, right? No one was in school. Athletics weren't going on. All of a sudden, you went from being a rising star on a football team to now there's no school, there's nothing, go out and get a job, and you just didn't have the ability to cope and change. So,
Yeah.
defining yourself as more than one thing and having time to fill your cup, if you call it that, I call it that, fill your cup with good stuff, is super important.
Absolutely, Jen. I love this so much. So let's pivot a bit here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what people in the audience can do to support, of course, Mission Save a Life, but also support themselves and those in their life that may be struggling in silence with mental health.
Yeah. So the things we kind of have a tagline with Mission Save Life: awareness, education, and action. So the first thing people can do to get engaged is to, you know, drive awareness. Easily done. You can go out to any of the social media properties. We're on LinkedIn and Facebook mostly. We have we're getting started on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. A lot of these things will be on YouTube. But, it's just Mission Save a Life on all of those, except for Twitter. It's just Mission Save a Life because you run out of characters. So there's no E at the end. So it's Mission Save a Life, or X if you want to call it X. So you can go out there and you can start to read the posts that are out there, share them. And if you find something you think would be relevant for us, post it out there and just tag our page and we'll bring that into our knowledge base. So we're taking all that information, we're going to pull it into a knowledge base, and we're going to build an AI chat engine to be able to engage with it. So that's the first way. The second way, and that goes to how do you support somebody? Start to talk about it. Most people that are in this place, this dark place, because they don't feel connected. They don't feel like they have anyone to talk to. They feel alone. So start talking about it. If you do have a community of people that you talk to, tell them, hey, if you're ever in this place, I'm here for you anytime, right? So just start talking about it and start opening up lines of communication, because that's, most people don't feel like they had a place to go or someone to talk to. And then the third thing is you can join our community. If you go out to missionsavealife.org, there's a button for community, and that takes you to the community application. It's kind of like our own social media. There's, a feed, there's, it's like posting on social media, but it's all in one community. So you can go out there. Everything's crowdsourced, right? So it's only as good as what people contribute. We're bringing together a whole bunch of what we're calling advocates to start to post content and to moderate discussions. And we have someone joining with on ADHD. We have another one in mental health, in technology, like I mentioned, teachers, college athletics. Like we're bringing together a different community of people that have a voice and a story to share. So those are the ways. And then you can also donate financially. We actually have a group of young ladies who are going to build a clothing line, right? So they're going to do t-shirts and sweatshirts and products. Uh, that's part of the cool thing is anyone who has an idea that they think could contribute, it's crowdsourced. We're open and available for anyone who wants to contribute to the community. And one of the young ladies, just when she heard the story, it gave her, like, she's like, that I need to get involved. Like, I want to contribute. And she's like, I've been searching and struggling and trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And she's like, I know this is, I need to do this.
Amazing.
Because her story's like yours, stories like mine. She battled depression. This is a place where if you have something you can contribute, anybody can. And you can do a proposal. I said, great. If you want to do something, like, run that and give us a proposal on, hey, 10% of the proceeds or whatever. You can build your own kind of job or business supporting our business or our nonprofit. I call it that. But yes, everything is crowdsourced.
Amazing stuff, Jen. And for those listening, all the links will be in the show notes. I want to thank you again for coming on the show, Jen. And of course, month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month, right? Suicide Awareness Month. All our episodes here at Unleash Thyself will be dedicated to mental health. And Jen, thank you for kicking us off on May 1st with this beautiful and important topic and everything that you do. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, and looking forward to working with you. And I'm hoping that every episode of a podcast, somebody takes something away and saves, hopefully saves a life and tells a story that one person needed to hear.
Yes, that's a beautiful vision and one that can easily be realized with the help of everyone around us. So thank you so much, Jen.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration of personal transformation. Your presence and engagement are at the heart of what we do, and I sincerely appreciate you, your time, and thirst for knowledge, inspiration, and empowerment. Please consider showing your support by hitting like, subscribe, leaving a comment, or writing a review. Your engagement not only fuels our mission, but also helps others discover these insights. For more daily guidance on personal transformation across the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical realms, be sure to visit our website at unleashthyself.com. You can also find us on Instagram at Unleash Thyself Today, TikTok and YouTube at Unleash Thyself, and there we post daily content designed to inspire and empower you on your journey. If you have any specific thoughts, questions, or feedback, I truly value your input. I would love to hear from you. Together, we're building a community united in authenticity and purpose. Once again, thank you for being a part of this movement. Until next time, continue to embrace your true self and live a life on purpose, with purpose. See you in the next episode.